typed in typhoon and wave. Nothing is popping up.
Alright, so ready blood.
Okay. Yeah.
後尾鬥住話 OK 啦呢個人。
For Korea has managed to gap to the chase group, which of course contains Moesha Johnson and our athlete sitting in there for Chinese Taipei, Apologies for the technical difficulties as we've pulled on the action here. This is lap 1 of 4, of course, the second day of Hong Kong, China, as we're here for stage 4 of the Open Water Swimming World Cup Series, hosted, of course, by World Aquatics. Joined today once again by Alice Deering, Tokyo 2020 Olympian. And Alice, it's been an exciting lap 1. Moesha Johnson's put Australia in a great position as they have another girl than 2 male athletes to finish off, but you can't take it away from Jaehoon Park of Korea, who leads us out.
Yeah, it's been a really exciting first lap, as you said. We saw Moesha really sticking in there with Park for the majority of the lap, but he's definitely found like an extra gear here, been able to take it to another level, and perhaps, the fatigue setting into quite a few of the athletes. We were saying that they swam 10K yesterday. Like that's really difficult racing, and then to come back 24 hours later, back it up with a very hard 1500 for a relay. So you've got that extra added edge of I'm competing for my teammates. It always brings an extra dynamic to it, and we really see Park taking this lead and extending it now.
So Jaehoon Park will lead out. The Koreans in cap number 10 will go male, male, female, female. Moesha Johnson leads the chase in Australian number 1 team. They have decided to go female, female, male, male as a big job for Jacqueline Davison-McGovern of Australia, who's yet to swimming second ahead of none other than Thomas Raymond, who was monumental yesterday, and Kyle Lee, who had a great finish, and of course the world champion from earlier this year, well, the world champion anchor for the Australian team, of course. So a lot on the shoulders for Jackie, but she showed us yesterday she's up for the task.
Yeah, certainly. As we're coming into her lap, it's going to be interesting to see where the Chinese Taipei athlete is going to sit, and will they be able to work together essentially to move around this next lap, or will one of them end up swimming off, or one of them gets dropped, and they kind of end up in no man's land at that point. We can expect to see Korea, the second Korean athlete, to continue and try to keep this lead up. But the place that Australian Chinese Taipei, is sat at the moment, it's a dangerous point, because you kind of end up in no man's land, and you have all of these really fast swimmers behind you gunning for you, wanting to catch you up. It's much easier to chase than to be chased. So it's going to be, it'll be the same for Korea, of course, but it's going to be an interesting 5 or 6 minutes whilst this develops.
Well, it's a great point there, Alice, because I believe leading that main group currently is Vivian Jungblut of Brazil, and she was steaming down that back straight. She's got Katie Grimes as well as Chelsea Gubecka with company of many other federations. So there's going to be a lot of pace coming through this second lap, but for now it's all been Park almost from the very first stroke of this lap, and he's going to hand his team over with a very impressive lead in what has been a quick opening lap. Trying conditions as they punch into that headwind, but 17:33 just a tad over as they change over.
Yeah, it's great to see the conditions eased up from yesterday. Towards the end of the race, you could really see how the wind had picked up. But right now, it's looking like great conditions. You said 28 degrees, water. That's quite warm. That's especially when you're swimming 1500 meters hard. That's going to feel like really, really tough towards the end. Not that it wouldn't feel that way anyway, but the water can really add to it. And we see Australia being 11 seconds behind Korea at the moment, and Chinese Taipei sat in 13 seconds behind. So like I said, the Australian and Chinese Taipei athlete, let's see if they do end up working together to try to chase down Korea.
So what's the secret here? Korea, obviously, with 11 seconds over the field, you'd like to see that. It'd have to be a couple of minutes at the end of this lap for them to be in consideration for the win.
Yes, yeah, there definitely is a recipe to this of what is the minimum amount of time two men can give a woman, 2 women, sorry, of course, to have that lead and to maintain it. Obviously, it depends on both of the athletes that you have going in. But as I always say, each country is putting forward the team configuration that they think will win them, or that they think will give them that opportunity to win the race. So it's always having that trust in your coaches and your staff that they have made the right decisions. And this event has been around for a good number of years now. There's been tried and tested ways many times, and each country, as I really like to see, actually isn't just sticking with sticking the women at the front and then putting the men at the back. There are constantly different ways of doing this and seeing what can work for each country and the athletes that they have.
So that chase group we saw there, Brazil, USA, sort of the main two. We saw Hong Kong won as well after a strong start from William Thorley sitting in that lead chase group. But what they'll be hoping for, obviously, with Ana Marcela Cunha and Claire Weinstein in the water, they want to jump up to Jacqueline Davison-McGovern and that Australian A team to give their boys the best shot. But you'd say if Jackie's able to hold that lead to the finish of this lap, Australia's going to be very difficult to catch in the last 2 laps.
Yes, certainly. And this is where, the speed of Claire Weinstein coming in, really needs to try and bridge that gap as much as possible. And of course, Ana Marcela Cunha of Brazil, there's a lot of pressure on these athletes to bridge that gap, because this is where races aren't won, but they can be lost. In the middle packs of this race, they call it the workhouse, the leg 2 and leg 3, where it gets hidden a little bit. That the start is like all hype and everything, and of course the finishes, but the middle is where the races are really won, and you put your team in the best contention. And we see Jacqueline doing really well here, leading the athlete from Chinese Taipei, who is sorry, just make sure I get the right team name. Su Huan, leading Su Huan at the moment, and really doing well. These angles can kind of fool you into thinking they're much closer than they are, especially if we see Ana Marcela Cunha leading Claire Weinstein at the moment in that kind of second chase pack.
Interesting to know. I think that Australian A team was just off the leading chase group before the start of this second lap, but I think they've bridged back up over the changeover, which obviously brings in some very fast boys on the anchor, with Nick Sloman set to anchor that Australian Team 2 home. So that's a big move if that's come to fruition here by, I believe, Taylor Martin, who's in the water now. So we'll see how that plays out. But yes, that the gap that Ana Marcela Cunha is trying to chase down isn't shutting down anytime soon. In fact, Jacqueline Davison-McGovern is almost closing the gap to Korea, as Jeonho Sung is opening his account in this straight. And I spoke to some of the athletes after they raced yesterday, and they said there was a stark difference in the conditions, which goes without saying, as we saw what yesterday provided. But swimming in the direction they're currently swimming with the course, it was much easier, much faster than what it was on the way back as they went into that headwind. So I'm sure they'd just be wanting to get out as quickly as possible and save some energy for that return account, because that's where those gaps can really start to be shredded if they're swimming into a headwind with not much left in the tank.
Yes, definitely. And that's such great feedback to hear that, we saw them pointing and talking about it at the end of the race, and you could tell there was everyone was like, yeah, there was a tough part of the course there, and that is normally the case for them. So it's a real consideration, especially when you're swimming by yourself. You're gonna have to sight by yourself. There's no room for error, especially for Korea at the moment. Jacqueline does have the luxury of having someone to chase, and you have that adrenaline inside of you, and it can really fuel you and keep you going. But leading can be challenging sometimes, because you can be putting down a really hard effort, but if you don't have as much, of course there's incentive to stay in front, but it is challenging. Mentally it is challenging. You've got to make sure your lines are right. That everybody else is coming behind you. There's that kind of anxiety and fear in it, but that also can drive your adrenaline. So depends on the athlete, depends on the mindset. But I do think we see the gap shrinking ever so slightly, but Sun is still doing very well to hold that and maintain it by himself.
It was a decision last year by World Aquatics to include all of the relays at this World Cup series, and you can see teams like Australia who have developed over years. That, you know, when it got introduced to the Paris World Cups a few years ago, entering the relays has been a big thing for these developing open water nations. Could we see the same with the US here? They're not often racing at a World Cup level, and you know, we're missing today with our team from France, Hungary, and Italy as three of the main contenders outside of Australia. Do you think that's the intention behind the US team to get their swimmers some experience?
Certainly, and that's such a good point because you're traveling all the way to Hong Kong for some parts of the world, for anywhere in Europe at the moment, of course, and the USA. You're going a very long way to compete, and it was always a shame in a sense that you turn up and you only have one race. But now having the relay, you get another opportunity to get in, get some hard meters done. At the very least, you're going to get a great training effect from it, some really great experience swimming in open water, and more opportunity to know what it feels like swimming by yourself in some of these cases and swimming in a pack and having to chase and really having to, you know, put in some really, really hard meters and really fast. So it can really help grow and nurture a team because open water is about a lot of training, but it's also about so much experience, and getting more opportunities to race is only going to benefit the athletes and then in turn the sport.
And there is certainly a lot of youth in that USA team, which I'm keen to talk about. But as we've been discussing, Jacqueline Davison McGovern of Australia has bridged this gap up to Jeonhung Sung of Korea, who was our leader, had 11 seconds on both Jackie of Australia and Chinese Taipei, who's sitting currently in third position. This is a very interesting part of the race here, Alice, because what we saw in that opening sort of straight was Jackie managing to actually open a gap to the chase group of the USA and Brazil, and I believe Australia's in there as well, their second team. Now she is in a position where she probably didn't think she was going to find the feet of Sung, but she has to continue to apply that pressure. So do you think we'll see Jackie sort of pull out and try and go around the Korean, or sit in and take some seconds just to savor the draft?
Yeah, this is such a good point because what do you do now? You can't sit back and enjoy this. The race is too short for that. You need every second possible to give your team the best opportunity to win, right? So it's not like a 10K where you can just kind of sit, wait, and then try and beat them at the finish. You need those seconds. You need to try and pull round. So I think sitting in, taking, you know, maybe 100 meters at the most to enjoy the draft, let some of the recovery set in, let your heart rate drop ever so slightly, and then start to try and pull round, or even, you know, getting on, touching his feet, letting him know, like, hey, we're here. What are you going to do about this? Are you gonna answer this call, or are you going to stick at the same pace? So I think we see her like really applying that pressure now, and she's gonna have to make a move soon if she doesn't think the pace is fast enough for her, if she thinks she can do more. Be interesting to see if we can get a wider shot and see if the group is catching up, because it does look like Jacqueline settled ever so slightly. I do think she needs to try and like pull round now. Like she's right on top of his feet. She is enjoying that draft, and I don't blame her. Like, it's a nice place to be. But yeah, and we see her making the move now. I think making that call, that decision that I need to put down those extra hard, that hard push, because it does look like that other group. It's not super close, of course. There's still a substantial amount of distance, but it definitely hasn't widened in the way that it was before. And we see them coming into this headwind now. The water kicking up, the wind taking it. It's going to be a long road back to the pontoon.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think once you turn around this can and you go into that headwind, that gap feels so much bigger than what it would look like on screen, and also what it would have felt like when you were swimming with the wind. So Oh, it's a tough one to see because you'd probably say that Jackie has another gear to use if she needs it, and that gap was definitely shortening on that back straight there. But looks like Sung has lifted into this headwind, and Jackie's up for the challenge as well. I would say, Alice, with the likes of Kyle Lee and of course, sorry, and of course Thomas Raymond to come next for Australia. If Australia is able to have even a 5 second gap after the end of this lap, I'd say that's almost the race done because we saw how monumental Thomas Raymond was yesterday swimming by himself. And as we say this, here goes Jackie out to separating by herself. Oh, and just cutting across with Chinese Taipei.
Yeah, really smart swimming from Su Horn there to, jump over to but you kind of have to put your eggs in a basket at this point, and like bet on the horse which is going to take you to the pontoon fastest. And she's made a very decisive decision here, taking a wide line away from Sun to not give him that opportunity to get on her feet. So, a very, very smart decision. Very very decisive from her as well to just say, okay, yeah, no, I'm going to take that gear up a notch now. We need to punch into the finish. She definitely did bide her time, enjoying that draft, letting her get a little bit of rest, and allowing her to really be able to lift into this finish now. So that gap, I think if it was getting closed, it's good, that door's going to be closing again. And you're absolutely right. They are going to have to really close it down on this last straight here if they do want that opportunity, because as we saw yesterday, Thomas Raymond leaving what I think about probably at least 7k of the race in the end, and at one point putting down a really substantial gap in lap 2.
Yeah, and I think if he's able to get his separation, knowing that there's only one lap to worry about. As we say that though, that gap is coming back. That's Ana Marcela Cunha, and she loves swimming in these conditions. So if anyone could do it, it is Ana Marcela. And unfortunately for Jackie here, she's going to be towing two athletes in her wake now. Oh, this is exciting racing. I'm sure Ana Marcela knows, for Brazil to be any contention for the gold medal, they do have to go into the water with the leading pack, because Thomas Raymond will be very hard to catch from this point in the race. And well, this is essentially the race over the next 2 minutes. If you're watching around the world, this is why open water swimming is so exciting, especially in this relay, because the race can come at any point. And you can see Ana Marcela Cunha and Claire Weinstein just going to battle through these late stages of lap 2.
Yes, absolutely. This is going to be a very interesting place for Australia to be sat, because we have 2 women going in for Chinese Taipei and for Korea. The likelihood is they will not be able to stick on Thomas Raymond's feet. So he's going to be swimming by himself. And from what we saw yesterday, I'm not nervous about that for him. Normally I would be a little bit like, oh, you probably want someone with you, But the athlete that he is, and the effort that he displayed yesterday, shows that he's comfortable swimming off alone. Whereas typically for open water swimmers, we kind of like to swim together, swim in a pack, get that draft. But I think for him, he'll be okay. But even still, knowing that you're being hunted like that is challenging. And we're just seeing Chinese Taipei overtake Jacqueline at the moment.
Well, how's that wide shot we had earlier of our chase group, which is now on screen? Ana Marcela Cunha and Claire Weinstein, the two federations that we thought could challenge. This is such a great picture. You can see the stroke rate of Ana Marcela Cunha compared to Claire Weinstein, and what is a traditional open water stroke, and what could be potentially the future of open water swimming. What are your thoughts on that, Alice?
Yeah, that is a really, really nice shot, and you're absolutely right. It's you've kind of got Claire Weinstein, who I do think if she wants to really pursue this, she's a real threat to world medals, to Olympic medals over the next couple cycles. She's only 17 years old. You've got Ana Marcela Cunha, who is a veteran of the sport, You know the figures of the amount of medals she's won. It's countless, like numerous. Um, just such an impressive career, such a great face and voice for the sport of what can be achieved with a lot of hard work, a lot of experience, and a lot of dedication. And she's a name that I really hope we continue to see on the start list because every time I see it, I'm like, yes, like we know that this is a heavy race if we've got Anna Mosa-Akinyi in there. So it's really cool to see what is the kind of current and veteran in the sense of she's been competing in the sport for so many years, been uplifting it and been a voice and an advocate for it. And then you've got Claire Weinstein who wants to take this seriously, already an Olympic medalist but looking to make a name for herself in open water. I think it's so exciting.
Yeah, they were clearly putting in the hard yards to try and catch Jacqueline Davison McGovern. And I'd say if it wasn't for this late kick that we've seen by Xiao of Chinese Taipei, we could have seen those packs group up. But Jacqueline Davison McGovern has absolutely had the swim of her life in this this meet. Essentially, she was 6th yesterday, and she's backed it up with a great performance here today. And when Xiao moved forward for this final straight, and what a kick he's had through the final stages of lap 2, she was able to capitalize on that as well, moving into the calmer, protected waters of the bay. But, Xiao really found that second gear.
Yeah, and Sao only 18 years old as well, so a very young athlete. And again, this is so exciting to see. Chinese Taipei is not traditionally a country that we see in open water or at the top of these standings. So great to see such a young athlete displaying what he can do. And he sat in behind Jacqueline, bid his time, and now is like punching through and showing a really impressive sprint to take his country into first place, going into lap 3. It's going to be some tough work for the upcoming athletes of Chinese Taipei and of Korea, because you're going against some of the top, of course, the top men in Australia, America, and Brazil. So it's always going to be challenging, but great to see them in this position. And she's just about to take the water now.
Yeah, we said there was 5 seconds needed for Australia to potentially get away. Chinese Taipei have put that into Australia, but expect to see Thomas Raymond close that down quickly. We'll keep an eye on the clock here. What's the gap back to Brazil and the USA? They have some good swimmers coming up as well. Loureiro of Brazil in the water next, and I believe Dylan Gravely of the USA in the water now. The gap is 12 seconds to the US. Claire Weinstein putting in a final spurt, but this is going to be tough, Alice. I can't imagine they're going to be able to jump back across. So potentially the medals lined up here, but we're still about to see a great show for these athletes. Thomas Raymond looked simply sensational when he was swimming all by himself yesterday, and look at how he's gone out with intent here. This is an athlete that's looking to make his first senior Australian team, racing at the World Championships next year in Singapore. And you can see why this relay means so much to the Australians when they're approaching the World Cups like this, because they know that races like today will get them a step closer to making that senior team.
Yes, absolutely. And as we've seen with Australia, there's a lot of athletes wanting to compete at that level. Of course, there's desire, there's drive, and you haven't got a choice but to be, in the top 10, if not the top 5, if not the top 3. There aren't. You have to do that. You have to be up there. So there's no easy route to doing that. And we're seeing Thomas Raymond, really taking it out. I just want to remind everyone, they all swam 10K yesterday. Like, it's really difficult racing, in tough conditions, and then backing it up with a very strong 1500. It's fun, it's exciting. Your body hurts, your mind's tired, but you keep driving through. And you're right, it's going to be some tough work from America and Brazil to bridge that gap. But they do, like I said, they have the kind of advantage in a sense of chasing someone, of having someone like a little bit of white water in front of you to look up and just focus on getting to that. Whereas Thomas Raymond's going to have to make sure his lines are good and that they're clean, because you can't afford to drop any seconds or kind of get lost on the course in any way.
That's where you sort of replace the skill of open water swimming, where you have to be able to navigate a pack, to being able to navigate the straightest possible lines. And in a course like this, where there is a stark contrast in the direction in which you swim due to the high wind, it does become ever so important to make sure that you're breathing and sighting, I guess, efficiently, because otherwise you don't want to be swimming those extra meters. We see this overhead shot, that gap from Raymond through to Gravely, who leads that chase pack for the USA, isn't opening up just yet. There was 12 seconds on the changeover between Australia and the USA, with Brazil just trailing behind. And then, interesting to note, Australia 2 was 1 minute and 11 seconds back, sitting in 6th position overall, but they've got their 2 men to swim here, with Robert Bonzel in the water, followed by Nick Sloman, part of that world champion team from earlier this year. So there is a lot of talent still to swim for Australia too, and potentially they'd just be hoping that both the US and Brazil relax a bit and try and secure those minor medals. Do you think there's still a chance, a minute, I guess essentially 35 seconds back to 6th place? That's a lot of time to make up in 2 laps.
Yes, it is definitely. And this one of those, like, even if they did catch them up, you've still got to touch the finish pad first, if that makes sense. When you're caught, it is tough and it is challenging, but your adrenaline does spike again. You do want to fight as much as you can. So you've done all of that effort to catch somebody up, and then you might touch their feet and find that they find that extra gear, because it was like the boost that they needed. It was the reminder that they needed, that they're not alone in this race, and that, yes, you could be far in front, but you still have to get over them and touch the finish pad in front of them. So really challenging. I just can't see Brazil or America, or of course Australia 1 in this case, letting that slide in any way.
Yeah, I guess your only hope is that they do start to get quite physical as they battle for that, potentially silver and bronze. We'll see how it plays out. There are some fast swimmers to come for the USA, and we were talking earlier about just how young they are. Dylan Gravely in the water currently had his best performance ever at a World Cup yesterday, finishing 8th overall in that 10K. Real breakout performance. He's the oldest in the team, sitting currently at 22 years of age. So when you look at the talent that they have and what that could potentially mean for future relays, with Grimes, Weinstein, Gravely, and Luke Ellis, who's ready to come on that final stage, it's exciting. And we know the talent that Luke Ellis has as well. We saw him race recently at the World Junior Championships and Junior Pan Pacific Championships, and he's got a lot of speed, especially over that 1500-meter distance.
Yes, yeah, definitely. This is what's so exciting about a lot of the teams that we're seeing on the program today. I was looking down the ages, and I was like, there's young, it's fresh talent. It's there's a desire from a lot of countries to nurture open water's talent, and we're not just talking about one swimmer anymore. We're talking about multiple, because you want to be able to field a good relay team. So you need 2 good men, 2 good women, and to be able to make that team work, you have to have given the sport the time and the opportunity within the federation. So it's amazing to see America fielding a young team here. And we have seen so many American superstars in the sport before, and kind of ebbs and flows with them, with the competitions which they choose to compete at. So you of course see them at the Olympics and the World Championships, but then at World Cups there wasn't as many features of them is what it felt like for me, as an athlete competing anyway. So seeing them at more competitions like this, putting out a great team at the World Juniors, where, oh my gosh, the girls, I think the girls won every individual race that there was to win, and then took 1 and 2 in the 3K sprint, which I can't believe we haven't spoken about that this weekend yet, because I don't know if us speaking about it can help push it forward or bring it into an existence in any way, but I really need to see that 3K knockout at a World Cup or at a World Championships as soon as possible.
Yeah, we definitely recommend anyone who is a fan of open water swimming going back through the World Aquatics YouTube platform to watch that race unfold, because it was the first time we've seen it at that level, and it was very exciting. as this race as this race has been at World Cup level and World Champs, but is continuing to provide, this gap is staying in the same position. Sorry, between Australia 1 back to the USA and Brazil. Dylan Gravely doing a great job. One thing I wanted to note, Alice, is we've talked a lot about some of the incredible open water programs around the world, and I'm not sure if this is still correct, but I know that all 4 swimmers from the USA team grew up at the Sandpipers program in Nevada, with Grimes, Weinstein, Gravely, and Ellis all residing from that program. So how impressive is that for them to produce these athletes at this level?
Yeah, completely. And when you hear of athletes all coming out of one program, and we hear it a lot in open water as well, actually, speaking from my experience in Loughborough, the majority of us came out for the Olympics were coming out of the same program on the world's teams, etc. You see the same with Bernd's team in Germany, based in Germany, and also Fabrizio's team based in Italy. So, you've got these really strong open water like swimming hubs around the world, and it kind of is at that point where you've got the majority of the best swimmers sat in one of these like 5 or 6 programs around the world. And as an athlete in open water, if you're looking up to the top of the sport and you're seeing where they train and what they do, it's no surprise that we see people moving to such programs like Sandpipers, like Bern, or like Fabrizio, because it's no coincidence that the medals are coming out of there, and it's difficult training. Let's not beat around the bush. It's some of the stuff I hear, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. I can see why. I can see how that works. I can see why you're at the top now, and it's really commendable to put yourself in those positions and want to be at the top of your sport.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I guess well, I'm sure many coaches would be learning from those leading edge industry makers like the names you listed before. So we'll see what that means for the next generation of athletes. For now, though, we focus on the water. This is Dylan Gravely in the frame for the USA, sitting second currently. He's got on his feet Luiz Loureiro of Brazil, sitting in third overall. There is a massive gap to fourth position, so you'd expect the medals to come from these 3 federations in Australia, USA, and Brazil. In what order is yet to be determined, but Thomas Raymond's done a great job to hold the lead, but it is definitely not extending to Gravely, sitting currently in second. We've got Kyle Lee on the anchor, and he, of course, famously was the anchor for the world champion title team that took home gold in February this year. He managed to hold off Domenico Azzarenza, and they both held off, of course. In third was Hungary. Swimming last was none other than Krzysztof Rajowski. So there is a lot of talent sitting on the anchor for Australia. Do you think, what's the secret here for Kyle? How does he maintain the goal? Does he need this gap, or do you think he'll prefer to swim in that pack and hope that his finish does the work for him?
Yeah, this is a really interesting place to sit because I think you just have to gun it. I think you have to go for it. You can't afford to, dive in, take some easy meters, sit back, and then let people come past you. It's a bold move in terms of just it's if something does go wrong, if you can't pick your pace up to match the speed of America coming in after, or of Brazil coming in after, and you end up slipping, and 1 meter suddenly becomes 2 to 10, etc. Your country will be asking like, hey, why don't you just go for it? So I think in those conditions, you're always better just get in, give it your hardest effort, and keep that gap, or try and make it as wide as possible for as long as possible, because you don't want to finish the race thinking I could have put more effort in and getting touched out into second or third. If you're coming into the finish funnel and you're absolutely dead, you're shot, and people do swim over you, and it's just like it's a tough day at the office, then hey, at least you can say that you put in that hard effort. So I think the difficult option is to get in and race it hard, and I think that's what he'll want to do.
To be fair, Kyle Lee only knows one way, which is to swim the race hard from the start and hard at the finish as well. So I'm sure the US and Brazil won't have an easy task to get over the top, but that's assuming a lot here. Thomas Raymond, he's done a great job, but as you mentioned, Alice, he did swim that 10K yesterday, led for 7 kilometers of that race, and you can see the effect maybe just starting to creep in on his stroke here. He knows there's only about 300 meters. What do you think's going through his mind at the moment? How's his body feeling?
Yes, yeah, you're in one of those situations where you have this beautiful lead. You don't want to let that go for any reason. You know that there's some fast men behind you, that they're coming quickly, and you just can't let up. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep going. It's going to hurt a lot, but it is, without sounding too cringe or corny, is temporary. You know that those meters will be done soon, and it will feel like a lifetime at the moment. But suddenly you'll touch the pad or touch the pontoon in this case, and it all kind of stops, and you you want to know that you've done all that you could in that moment.
And just from that wide shot there, we saw Robert Bonzel of Team Australia just sitting behind the chase group. It's still a sizable gap. So for Nick Sloman, who's on the anchor, probably too big to chase down. I would say, though, on paper, probably the fastest 1500-meter swimmer in the field is Nick Sloman, who will be on the anchor for Team Australia 2. Obviously, in that second team after finishing third overall Australian yesterday. He has a tall task ahead of him. And Alice, this is an interesting point in the race. We mentioned on the opening straight of lap 3 just how important the lines can be at the conclusion of each lap. And Tommy Raymond here just pulling out ever so slightly wider than Gravely and Machado that's sitting inside the field. So this could be a key point here for the USA team. Can they jump across in the final stages? And has Tommy Raymond left enough in the tank to continue to hold this gap to the separating field?
Yes, yeah, I think it does look like that gap has closed ever so slightly. And you know, it's one of those where coming in for Australia, it's you gotta go. Yeah, you can't allow that door to open. You know, it's creeping open ever so slightly. You just can't allow it fully to get there. So it is difficult. It's really hard. And you know, for America and Brazil, like I've been saying, you do have that luxury of being able to chase, and that drive and that fire can really keep burning within you. So they're going to allow, like, have that continued into the next lap, but it's still going to be difficult. You know, it's still a good maybe 10-second gap, so it's probably maintained over the course of the lap. But you know, as we see with open water, anything can happen.
Yeah, that is right. And you know, the thing that would be scaring the Australians, of course, is if there is a 1v1 match, it's a lot easier to get your hand on the on the board first, because you're simply match racing down that final straight. But when there are 3 athletes, there's just too much that you can't control in that situation. So the key thing for Tommy here is just to keep the pace on. You can see the redness in his shoulders. He's worked so hard over the last 2 days, and he's about 200 meters away from handing over to Kyle Lee, and he'll have the honor of anchoring the Australian team, just hoping that they can keep away from the USA and Brazil through this final bit of the race, and ultimately swim through to that gold medal. And then, Alice, we start talking about how strong this Australian team is really becoming. They've put a resume together. They obviously won gold back in functional to round out the season last year in the relay, and then took home the gold medal at the World Championships. They are in the commanding position at the moment, and I think they're starting to put a resume together that competes against the likes of France, Hungary, and Italy.
Yes, definitely. You know, and this is what keeps open water fresh and exciting. You know, with more events coming into it, the federation's like, okay, well, that's more world medals to win, and hopefully one day more Olympic medals to win. So it, even like opportunities like this, it's massive for countries where, you know, you come away from a World Cup with a team medal, and it just is something to show your federation, like, hey, yeah, look, we're winning medals at the world level. keep funding us, keep giving us these opportunities, to travel to Hong Kong to get this experience, because one day this is going to translate, if it hasn't already, into a world medal, and then hopefully, as I said, an Olympic medal. So always great to see athletes really committing to this race, and I think it is a favourite on the programme.
Well, I got to say, Alice, shame on me for doubting Tommy Raymond there. He has absolutely found that second wind through the final stages of the race.
Yeah.
That was absolutely essential to handing over this gap, and we'll see what it is as the timing board ticks over 9 seconds. That's going to be a massive gap for Luke Ellis to shut down, and I'll make this claim now: if he doesn't catch him before they turn into the headwind, the gold medal will be going to Australia. But wow, Tommy Raymond, he found that second wind.
Certainly, and just the credit to him for swimming it on like ultra hard mode yesterday, like completely like leading for that long, continued to fight throughout the whole race, continued to put in some hard effort, some hard meters, basically swam a 10k at best average, which is really, of course, as I've said, the most difficult way to swim the race. So to come back today, a lot of fatigue in his shoulders, his aerobic system will be tired, he'll be exhausted, and really fight with every stroke to the end to give Australia that chunky lead, and put America and Brazil in a really tough position where they're going to have to do some really difficult swimming, some hard meters. Hopefully they can work together potentially to try and catch him. I think that's going to be their best bet. It's just continued like pushing and driving each other forward.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Brandy Macedo in the water. Geez, that was a quick change over there by Nick Sloman of Australia, managing to pull away from China for 4th and 5th. You'd say that's the race, though. They're not going to be able to swim up a minute and a half to the medals. So we'll see the medals come from Australia, Brazil, and the USA, assuming there's no disqualifications through the final lap. And I tell you what, Alice, it's not often you can say that a 22-year-old is the veteran of the sport, but Kyle Lee in this field against what are some 18-year-olds is simply the veteran, and you can see the experience. He would have had his coach, Ian Mills, out of North Coast Swim Club, just in his ear after years of racing to say, you're not sitting back, you're not letting the chase group swim up to you for a race. You're going to time trial from the start, and there's not going to be the door's not going to be open at all to the competitors.
Yes, yeah, and this is where you have to trust your gut, trust your feeling, and believe in yourself, have that confidence to say, yeah, okay, I'm committing to this, I'm going for it. And I actually think we've seen that gap widen. I think it looks like it's a little bit more than 9 seconds, as we saw when they did the changeover. So, and we're just seeing our career changeover now. Our leaders from lap 1. As always, like I'm saying, it's great to see a diversity of nations in there. Korea, Brazil. I've been shouting out Mexico a lot as well. So really, really, it's just such a great sport, such a fantastic sport, and seeing different lines being taken here. I do think Kyle Lee has the better one from this angle, but always the camera angles can be deceptive. Of course, being at water level, you do have the better eye, but when you're swimming this fast and this hard, it's very easy to swim off course or be mistaken or not spot the buoy in the correct way.
Yeah, we saw a change in order as well. Brazil's gone around. Luke Ellis, so Brandy Macedo of Brazil, now sitting in second position and taking the responsibility of chasing down Kyle Lee. And you sort of look at the stroke that Kyle has, and it makes it look a lot easier than it actually is. He's got quite a low stroke rate in comparison to, say, Tommy Raymond, who we saw on the earlier lap, but he is a very strong athlete. I think he's around the 185, 186 centimeters, and he makes that efficiency work for him, just sitting out in front. And you'd be remiss not to believe that he's out for an easy Sunday swim, but how's this gap opening between second and third, Alice, as Brazil and USA have separated and swimming on their own lines?
Yes, yeah, this is the difficult part for Luke Ellis because he'll know that the line isn't quite right and doesn't want to fully commit to it. So, he's taken the kind of gutsy decision, and we'll have to just see how that works out for him to swim by himself. And honestly, there's no right or wrong in these situations. It's just you'll have the beauty of hindsight in about 3 minutes' time. But at this point, he's done what he exactly thinks is right. So, and it it's going to be harder for him. He's not going to get that draft. He's going to have to keep his stroke rate up, keep his kick up as high as he can, but taking what I think is probably a faster line to the boy.
Well, this would be the sort of way that Australia too would want it to play out, where there's some confusion between the medalists as to how directly they want to swim, opening the door maybe ever so slightly to Nick Sloman to swim through the field. But as I said earlier, I think that minute and a half is going to be too tall of a task to come through. But there's no doubting that Kyle Lee out in front, using his experience at this level, as we go back to see the back markers of the race coming through the changeover for their final athlete. Hong Kong have put on a show here, and they have their final swimmer in the water now.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely love that we are back in Hong Kong. I never got to race it, unfortunately. It was always one that I wanted to go to. Always seen some big waves in the water here. I don't know if a boat's been through or something. Like it's quite, unless it's just the movement of the ocean, it just looks quite rhythmic. But it's definitely more than 9 seconds now, this lead. And we're just seeing the Brazilian athlete come around the buoy there and Luke Ellis kind of peeling behind him. So always a challenging one when you do know that someone's taking a line that is questionable, and you kind of have to be like, okay, do I back myself or am I just going to go with them and trust their speed that it's the better thing for me to do. So, and then you might still get dropped in even taking their line and even sitting behind them, and then you've taken a longer route and then also have been dropped. So it's can really a difficult situation. You have to be very decisive in the moment.
Well done as well to Leonardo of Brazil to make Luke commit to a line as well and get him off his feet. Now he's got that separation. Brazil in the driver's seat for that silver medal. You can see Australia B on that last shot was closing down that gap, but it's going to be a very difficult move. So here we go. Sorry, Leonardo Brand de Massado of Brazil. He's done a fantastic job through this opening straight. He's got quite a high stroke rate, and he's created separation from second to third, which is great for the Brazilians, but it's going to be a really tough thing to do to chase down Kyle Lee, especially as we move into this chop. Kyle moved all the way from 12th into 4th position in yesterday's 10 kilometers through this final straight. He is an absolute animal when he swims into the headwind, and we'll get to see it all on our screens worldwide as we come down to the final straight, of course, here in Hong Kong. And Alice, we've talked about the depth that Australia's been able to provide over the last couple of seasons, and it's a credit to, I guess, the coaches of the entire country really starting to believe in what open water can provide for athletes. But you really have to take your hat off to what they're proving in their women's stock specifically. Jacqueline Davison-McGovern yet to make a first senior team as well. And yesterday finishing 6th overall, you had Moesha Johnson take the win out, Chelsea Gubecka as well, a former World Cup stop winner. You add to that in Taylor Martin, who swam in their B team, Bianca Chris, Maddie Go. The names just continue to roll through for the Australian women's ranks, and you could say arguably probably one of the deepest federations currently in women's open water swimming.
Yes, absolutely. It just seems there's another name to learn every year with Australia, and that's what it looks like from the outside. And I'm sure like being internal as you are, you'll know that these names are coming up. But for us around the world, it's like you get to a race and you see, oh, like Jacqueline burst onto the scene now. Amazing result yesterday. Really exciting future for her. And like we see with Italy, with France, with Germany, with America, these spaces for the world champs are going to be really difficult to contend with for Australia. you've got so many athletes with the depth that can really um, challenge and, getting on podiums, getting into the top five, top 10. So it's going to be a very interesting selection race when we do get round to it in 2025. These selection races typically everyone kind of ends, all the federations kind of end up picking the same one. So you end up with a situation where you have like six Australians, like six Italians, and they always end up being like the hardest races of the circuit. And the depth, just because of the depth that everyone's fielding to pick their teams, is so impressive. So we're definitely seeing that with Australia. And I think the men are going that way too. Thomas Raymond yesterday looks incredible. Carl Lee as well here, looking really good. I do just want to shout out the age of Leonardo of Brazil and Luke Ellis of America, both only 18 years old. So some really exciting, fresh talent coming through here. And there's a lot that we need to be excited about in open water because it's constantly evolving, constantly changing, and there's always fresh talent ready to take on this challenge.
That's a great point, and it's good to see the next generation of open water stars starting to push through at a World Cup level. We've seen Sasha Veli really start to dominate those junior ranks and pushing through as well to dominate the World Cup scene. So I'm sure it won't be long until we see Luke and Leonard competing with the likes of Kyle Lee. But how's this shot here, Alice? We talked about it yesterday. When you are swimming into a headwind, it does make you look like you're swimming a bit faster than what you are. But Kyle Lee is actually swimming very fast into this headwind and doing a great job to not let that chop get to him. And I guess it's a testament to his strength. That would be a lot of hours in the pool, making sure that they're nice and tough. And, this loping stroke means that he's able to get clean water every time he breathes as well.
Yes, definitely. This is something that all athletes in open water at any stage really, like, if you want to take the sport seriously, need to consider is having that strength, endurance, making sure your shoulders are healthy. Getting your pre-pull right is the key one, the easiest place to start, of just making sure your shoulders can be healthy to deal with the meters and the load that you're putting through it. So whilst we often get asked, like, oh, how often did you swim? And it's like, okay, yeah, I swam like 20 hours a week, for example, but around that, you've got half an hour at the start of each session, making sure your shoulders are healthy and strong. And, even still with all of that work and all of that conditioning that you put them through, they will still get niggles. They will still get injured at some point. Even myself, I was really fortunate that I didn't deal with a shoulder injury, but even towards the end of my career, it would start to pinch a little bit if I hadn't warmed up my shoulder properly. So we'll see all of these athletes probably going through something like that at some stage in their career. And hopefully it never turns out to be anything like super serious, that it can just be maintained with little exercises and stuff like that. But it is a really physically demanding sport, and of course your shoulders are taking the brunt of that all the time. And we're seeing Carl Lee here with a really, really nice clean open water stroke, gets his breath in perfectly, not over breathing, doesn't have to look up too high. And that will be because he has made his shoulders be able to cope with all of the effort and the strain that is going through it.
Yeah, well, obviously they would be training for that. And I do want to just shout out Kyle. I know that he would have friends and family watching around Australia and around the world. He had a massive cheer group that went over to Paris, flew in from all over the world to watch him. He's one of the most humble and nice guys on the circuit. So I'm glad to see him out the front winning again. But Kyle's versatility across the different races, this is an athlete that can swim a 156 200-meter butterfly. He's a low 15-minute 1500 freestyle. He's obviously shown his prowess over the 10K, and he's also extremely sort of profound over the ultra marathon distance. He's raced the 25K World Championships a few years ago. He's also a winner of the 20-kilometer distance, the Rottnest Channel Swim, which is an annual swim held in Perth, Australia. So he is an athlete that can really do it all, as is a lot of open water swimmers, which goes to your point on that shoulder strength that comes from a versatility of training. And I guess, a mindset that is unlike any other athlete in the world. You mentioned yesterday that you believe the marathon swim is the hardest sport at the Summer Olympics, and I'd have to agree with you, not just because of the distance and I guess the difficulty of that event, but also because of the mentality that you have to race at this level. And yeah, it's good to see a great showing here again as we round out the competition in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I just want to say about having a cheer squad is so it's so nice to hear that, and this is the one of the beauties of sport, not just open water swimming in its sense, but it really has the opportunity to bring people together like that, to get behind your fellow countrymen, to get behind your friends, and get to travel the world in like some really cool settings, as I've been saying all weekend. This is such an amazing venue, and just want to shout out Leonardo here as well. He's done some really, really hard racing here. This is really exciting to see from someone so young. Of course, we've got Carly, like 22 years old. Normally I'm talking about that, but that's been like the really young level. So, like we've been saying, there's so much fresh talent in here, and I think these World Cups where you don't have it as stacked with the Europeans, for example, it gives a really great opportunity for other countries to allow their athletes to shine, to get some great experience. And it's still very heavily stacked, of course, but for us, especially as the commentators and the fans, it's put people like Jacqueline on our radar, where we get to see the potential of what we're doing. So when we see her hopefully in Saudi Arabia in a few weeks, if Australia are competing there, or next year at other World Cups, if not the World Championships, it's not going to be a surprise that we see her in the top 10 and potentially qualifying for Australia.
That's a great point, and I'm sure it won't be the last time. It's going to be a hard relay to crack into. They have been absolutely dominant today. Brazil were the best of the challengers. They'll take silver. The USA will get bronze through Ellis, and what a team that was as well. Grimes, Weinstein, Gravely, and Ellis will take the bronze. Brazil will get silver, and Ana Marcela adds to her collection. But the moment and the gold belongs to Australia as Kyle Lee now opens his final account of lap 4. This is, of course, the mixed 4x1500m freestyle relay. Moesha Johnson separated the gap. Jacqueline Davison McGovern kept the gap. Thomas Raymond did his job in the third position. Kyle Lee is going to come home with a gold. They won gold in Funchal. They won gold in Doha. And they take gold yet again for Hong Kong. Australia is opening a dynasty as they stop the clock there. 1 hour, 10 minutes and 50 seconds. What a result, Alice.
Yeah, just some absolutely fantastic racing from the entire Australian team. From Moesha Johnson to get stuck in behind career, really battle through, allow them to get into a position where they were just kind of leading from that point, essentially. Had the competition between career, Australia and Chinese Taipei over the two first legs, but it was kind of their race to lose at that point, and it's all because of those opening legs and then the continued effort from the final two swimmers. It's really, really difficult racing, so yeah, huge congratulations to them, and to Brazil as well. It's great to see them, quite a young team in there as well, like a mix of ages, so some really great experience where you've got Ana Marcela Cunha, of course, kind of the leader of the team, being the veteran, and getting to race with some of these juniors. Basically, it's really, really cool to see.
Yeah, well done to Brazil taking silver there. Great result. Jungblut, Cunha, Lobero, and Brandt de Misado as they get silver by just 9 seconds. So Leonard actually able to take some time off the Australians there in second position. The USA in third, as we mentioned, and well done to that young team. Australia too, also taking time off the lead to finish in fourth overall. A great result by them and adding to that depth. But what a result it was here to round out the 2024 stop 4 of the World Aquatics Open Water World Cup Series. Kyle Lee on camera, clearly a bit tired after a big weekend, but happy with the results. Fourth in the 10K and gold in the relay. Not a bad weekend, if you ask me.
Yeah, certainly not. We're just coming to the end of the open water season, I suppose, but I'm already thinking like, okay, so hopefully we'll kick off soon again for the next year. Of course, I've still got another World Cup to come with Saudi Arabia in a few weeks' time. But already, I'm so excited for 2025. We're seeing, some of these names like start to punch through. Some great opportunities. Just seeing Team China finish there as well, just 2 minutes behind. So, a lot of exciting talent coming from around the world, and I just think the potential and the future battles that we're going to see unfold are really exciting.
Yeah, it's you add some other big federations to the mix with Italy, France, Hungary, to name a few, and it almost gets a bit mouth-watering to think what those races could look like if you add in a Krzysztof Rozovsky and a Dominic Gazzarenza, or even what we saw yesterday with Dario Verani and Marcelo Guidi. These are the matchups that are going to continue to grow. Not only the 10-kilometer distance, the relays, and potentially the 3-kilometer knockouts as well. This is it's exciting racing, and it's going to get even more exciting with years to come. And of course, as you mentioned, NEOM will host the fifth and final stop this year in Saudi Arabia in just a couple of weeks' time, and open water will actually form part of the beach games through that competition in NEOM. So it's going to be cool to see open water swimming be put on that pedestal that the beach games provides.
Yeah, definitely, and that's such a good point that open water swimming is involved in other areas of the world in terms of sport. It's not of course, there's the World Aquatics World Cup, absolutely fantastic. We also have the Len World Cup, the Len Cups, in Europe. But then, also the beach games. There's Ocean Man. It's a very wide and exciting sport. There's a lot going on with it. I think World Aquatics are putting on some incredible competitions, really being innovative with how we view open water swimming, with the relay. I'm really, like you said, excited by the prospect of the 3K knockout. I really think that can be a special one to add to the program and just give athletes another thing to compete for. As I've been saying, if we're looking at funding for federations and stuff like that, it's just great to give athletes, another competition to, get stuck in with and earn medals for their country. So, got some really, really exciting racing coming up. And of course, NEOM is going to be fantastic. It's the end of it. It's the end of this year, sorry. So, there's a lot for the athletes to play for in terms of points.
Yeah, and as you mentioned that, there's a lot to play for still for the overall rankings. You look at the women's rankings, Ana Marcela Cunha, she's been the GOAT for so long, and, arguably with Sharon taking home the Olympic gold this year, you could put an argument in for Sharon to be the GOAT as we hear an interview
Congratulations to
now.
Team of Australia. Let's make some noise for them. So first of all, may I know how you guys feel today, especially comparing to the weather yesterday?
The weather today is a lot nicer than yesterday. The sun's out, beautiful place, good to race again.
I was a bit sore after yesterday, and definitely the weather's a lot better today, so I'm quite happy with that.
Thank you. And also, is there any tactical plan for the relay race today?
I think the tactic was to stay strong the whole way through, and I think we definitely did a very good job today, so I can almost guarantee we're all very happy.
Sure, I believe that. So then the last question, is there any specific challenges that are coming across or you experienced during the race?
The wind's still up out the back, so there's some little choppy waves to swim through. The water's quite warm and the sun's quite bright, so just keeping on course is a little bit challenging. And also relays are mixed men and women, so it's always interesting having to race different genders across the race and different orders.
So lastly, how do you feel about Hong Kong? Visiting Hong Kong.
It's been fantastic. This is my first time in Hong Kong, and if this is your typhoon weather, well, I'll be back any day.
Just thank you to everyone here that helped organise the event. Everyone's been super friendly and absolutely beautiful venue, so thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Once again, congratulations to Team of Australia. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Well, great to hear the feedback of the athletes there, and good to see the support for the organising committee here in Hong Kong, much like the athletes. Alice and I, very happy to be racing back in Hong Kong, and what a spectacle it's put on the last couple of days.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think it is really lovely to hear the athletes kind of like give their thanks and praise to the area, to the organising committee, because you know a lot of hard work goes into these competitions, especially for open water, as we were touching on yesterday. You know, the safety is so important. You can see the kayakers just coming in now. You can see the massive boats having to come in to make sure all of the athletes are safe. So it's just really, really great to be back in Hong Kong, and everyone who's helped set it up, you've done a fantastic job. So yeah, just talking about, just hearing them touch about the course as well, saying that it was still windy at the back of the course, as of course they went further out into the ocean, massively affects how tactics of the race. And as you were saying, it's going to have to be they of course would have had a considered approach going into that section, making sure that their lines are good, knowing that the meters are going to be much more difficult. And we're just seeing the final swimmers come in now, and it's from Team Hong Kong.
Yeah, well done to all the teams that have competed valiantly today. 11 teams entered. I believe 11 will finish as well. So there should be one more team, I believe, from Chinese Taipei that will finish after this Hong Kong team. But also, Alice, interesting to hear Moesha talk about the water temperature, and it's something that we haven't really discussed, but 28 degrees is very warm for these athletes to be competing in. So they've done a great job in order to maintain their pace throughout the race.
Yes, definitely. You know, they would have been competing in that, of course, yesterday with the 10K. I mean, it might have been ever so slightly cooler, maybe 27, but, you know, still warm. And, you know, when you deal with those temperatures in the pool, you're normally like, okay, this is a warm pool, this is feeling hot. And you still get kind of the luxury of, you know, not having to swim a 10K typically in a pool, not in this context. So the athletes have done very well. I'm sure hydration would have been, you know, a key issue, a key consideration going into this, making sure the hydration tablets are taken, enough water's been drank, making sure that their electrolytes are loaded up on, because you're going to be sweating a lot more than usual. And you know, we have seen some warmer races over the past few years. Tokyo, for example, was one. The Tokyo Olympics, that was 30 degrees. So you know, some of the athletes here would have been not accustomed to those temperatures, but dabbled with it in the past. So we are seeing temperatures at the higher end, but still within the limit, of course.
So with your experience then, I guess, of racing in those conditions, what would the athletes be feeling in those backstages of, well, the 1500, but also the 10K yesterday? And how, what are some of the strategies you can use as the race unfolds to maintain your body temperature?
Yeah, this is a challenging one, you know. You kind of know that you're just going to have to deal with it. And even with Tokyo, from my experience, you know, I did all of these like heat acclimatization things, and it never felt like it was enough. You know, doing hot baths and stuff like that. It just, even in the race, you just feel like you wish you'd done more. You wish you could just deal with it better. So you kind of remind yourself everybody else is going through the same thing. I'm not alone in this. It's challenging, it's difficult, but I have a job to do. I need to keep driving forward. I need to keep locked in, and just make sure your preparation at the start is as good as it can be, because you're always going to feel thirsty, you're always going to feel hot, but you just have to keep pushing through that.
So that was our 11th team across the line there. All competitors accounted for here in Hong Kong. A great result for what has been a great meet. We saw Moesha Johnson take out the women's 10 kilometers yesterday. Dario Varani take gold in the men's in a thrilling finish between him and Marcelo Guidi. And then, of course, today, Australia dominant as ever in the relay, getting the win ahead of Brazil and USA. Getting the official results now, Australia A finishing there in 1 hour, 10 minutes and 53 seconds. Brazil second, USA in third. Australia, China, Brazil, Hong Kong, Korea, Chinese Taipei, and Hong Kong, China, 2 in 10th position. So a good result across the board. We'll, of course, stay online as we get ready for the medal presentation. And as always, Alice, I would love to know your highlight of today's race.
Oh, I think I I'm gonna have to go with Jacqueline. Second leg for Australia. Just, it's always difficult when you're sat in those middle legs because you know there's a lot of pressure on you. You can't shy away from it. You can't try and hide from the work. And not that any athletes would want to do that anyway, but you have to get in and fight. And she did incredibly well to, you know, come over Korea at the end. And the Chinese Taipei athlete did end up taking it in front of her, and it's a very exciting prospect for him in the future. Definitely a name to keep our eye on. But I think she did incredibly well to hold her own, especially being, you know, only 20 years old, a younger athlete, and just starting out with her experience like at this level and racing at this level. So great that she's been able to take home a gold medal because of her efforts and a fantastic 5th place yesterday in her individual race. But what about you? What are you thinking?
I'm going to have to go with Leonardo of Brazil on the final leg, managing to swim away from Luke Ellis, who is a fantastic young American swimming prodigy, to take time off Kyle Lee as well, whilst not really swimming the straightest line. I think him just being 18 years of age is a really exciting prospect for Brazil, and we haven't seen their men really fire a shot at that top level in a number of years. So I'm excited for what the future holds for Leonardo Brant de Macedo, and potentially we might be remembering today's race as one where he came out to the party. Yeah, that's my pick, and
I love that. Yeah.
But that was, I mean, I would have picked Jackie, but I think you were bang on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Leonardo. You know, there's fantastic racing from all of our athletes, of course, but you know, getting to see those really special swims where you could see how happy Brazil were at the end there, and Marcelo Cunha laughing and joking with him. He was obviously delighted with his performance, as he should be. Did really well to keep fighting. You know, getting in front of Carl, he was always going to be a challenge, but the fact that he was able to, you know, maintain that gap and really strive through, and of course there's a bit of rawness in him in terms of his lines. If they'd been a little bit cleaner, a little bit tighter, he could have taken another 2 or 3 seconds off. But yeah, fantastic effort from him today.
Now we get some of the highlights of the race. It's good to live back these moments as we see the teams being introduced. 11 people on the starting platform. It's not very often that you have a field that small, but they made it look very easy early on.
Yes, definitely. And then this is another thing that it's just great experience for swimmers to get those races where you're not lining up with like 70 other people. You know what it feels like to swim in a small pack, because that does happen sometimes. And you know, at the Olympic Games, there are currently only 22 spaces, so the field would only double in this size, and that's still not a lot of people. It's definitely not the amounts that athletes are used to. We're just seeing the shot of Jacqueline there pull up on some of Korea, but it's such a good point about the field size. And again, as I'm saying, it's just more valuable experience racing in those situations where it might be you're swimming by yourself, or a one-on-one scenario, and they don't always happen in 10Ks, and when they do happen, they feel very alien and very odd, like it's not what you're used to at all. So very valuable experience for the athletes, especially for the juniors.
Yeah, it's an essential experience and different sort of level of racing knowledge, from racing in a big pack to racing individually, making sure you swim the straightest possible lines and ultimately keeping the pedal on the gas all the way to the finish line, which is what we see here by Kyle Lee as he came down to take the gold. There was Australia B across in 4th, Brazil 2nd, USA got 3rd through Luke Ellis. What a result. Kyle Lee happy, and he continues to build quite an impressive resume at just 22 years of age. Of course, there's still a bit of action to come here from Hong Kong as we get ready for the victory ceremony, but for now we'll take a break. Please stay tuned, and we'll be heading to medals very shortly.
First of all, we are very honored to welcome Mr. Ronnie Wong, the president of the Hong Kong China Swimming Association.
So about
for
to
presenting
head
the
to
prizes
the
for
victory
us.
ceremony for the mixed 4x1500m relay. Good to have
The winner
representation
of the
from our
bronze
organising
medal goes
committee.
to the team of United States of America.
And we kick it off with our bronze medalists. And Alice, they were very strong throughout. I think we'll see the USA on top of the podium in years to
And
come.
they are
An
Casey
absolute
Grimes,
star-studded
Claire
lineup,
Winston,
and very young as
Dylan
well.
Greffley and Luke Ellis.
Yes, definitely. You know, I think we definitely have at least 2 juniors in there. I think Katie Grimes might still technically be a junior, but even still, you know, very, very young team. Great for them to be getting a senior world medal, some fantastic experience, and always special to be able to do that with your countrymen.
Yeah, a
The
lot of young
silver
talent, and
medals
as we
goes
said,
to
almost
the team of Brazil,
representing the
team
same
number
club as well,
1.
Sandpipers in Nevada, really starting to
And
put themselves on the
athletes
map
are
as an
Vivian
open water
Sompucci,
destination club.
Anna Marcela
Brazil
Cunha,
in
Luis
second,
Felipe
as you said, a
Guerrero,
mix
and
of experience
Leonardo Branch
and
de
youth.
Macedo.
Obviously, Anna Marcela Cunha and Vivian Jongblut are one of the best duos in open water swimming, and Brazil's future looks just as bright with their next generation of stars.
Yes, definitely. You know, a fantastic effort from Leonardo, as we were just talking about before we went on a short break. But really, really exciting to see, and it's just great to see how happy and what
And
this
the
means to them as a
champions
country
goes
and as
to
Oh,
they
team
line
of
up for their picture.
Australia, team number 1.
But of course, the moment belongs to one federation, and that is the gold medalist
Marisha Johnson,
in Australia, Moesha
Jacqueline
Johnson,
Davison,
taking home 2 golds from these championships.
Thomas Edward
Currently
Raymond and Kyle
4th
Lee.
yesterday. Jacqueline Davison McGovern, of course, finishing 6th overall, and Thomas Raymond, I believe, 7th in the men's 10 kilometers. So what a team they've brought to Hong Kong, and what a result throughout the weekend.
Yes, it's so exciting for them. You know, as you said, reigning world champions, continuing to show their strength and their depth. The team will evolve and it will change, and I think that's what's exciting. You know, it's a
Let's
world
take a
champion
grip photo.
winning team. There's a lot of potential with it, and with that comes a lot of names and a lot of people who want to be getting onto that team.
And I believe the first time ever that we'll hear the national
And
anthem
thank
of
you,
Australia
Mr. Ronnie
twice
Wong. And
from
once again,
one World Cup
congratulations to
stop.
all
So
the teams.
this will mean a lot to their athletes and a lot to the federation.
And now please stand for the national anthem of Australia.
So that all but wraps up the action here in Hong Kong for
Once again,
stage 4
congratulations
of the
to all the swimmers
2024
and the teams
World
from
Aquatics Open
yesterday
Water
and today.
World Cup in
And
Hong
this is
Kong,
the
China.
end of
What a
the prize
meet it
presentation
has
ceremony
been.
of the
Australia
World
on top
Aquatics
on
Open
day
Water
2,
Swimming
the
World
mixed
Cup,
relay,
Hong
the
Kong
4x1500
Station
meters.
2024.
Brazil in second, USA gets third. Alice, it's been a great weekend of competing. We've heard of the highlights throughout. There's plenty to look forward to. Neom will round out the final stage of the series in just a few weeks' time, and there's plenty on the cards there. What are you most excited for the final stop of the 2025 World Cup Series?
I'm gonna call the men's 10K. I'm really excited to see what's like who is going to be getting on top of that one, because as we've seen, Varane
And the last
and
official
of course
announcement is the shuttle
Guidi
bus
over
will
the
be
past
ready
like two
at
races
11:30.
has been so competitive
and so please
between
pay
the
attention
Italian
for
swimmers, and
team manager,
just
coaches,
wondering,
and swimmers
is
that the
anybody
shuttle bus
going
will be ready
to
at
contest that, or
11:30.
what? I wonder what's going to happen there. I think it's really exciting. Of course, the women's 10 and the relay as well going to be very exciting. But I think the men's title race and the for the overall champion of the World Cup legs and World Cup races is going to be like so hotly contested. I can't wait to see how that goes. But what are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Very, very much similar from me. Marcella Guidi, Dario Varani, and Marc-Antoine Olivier, the ones to watch. Who's going to take home that series points title for 2024, and what does that mean for next year? Of course, we've talked throughout the federations as to who's going to be representing them at the World Championships next year. All that and much more. But it's been a pleasure calling the action with you, Alice, and yeah, very much looking forward to the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, certainly. Really exciting. Going to be a great opportunity. I think first race ever in Saudi Arabia, as you said, attached to the World Beach Games. So great open water swimming yet to come. And as always, it is fantastic getting to commentate on open water swimming with you, Will.
So that concludes the action here at the 2024 World Aquatics Open Water World Cup Series in Hong Kong, China. It's been great to be back here in Hong Kong. The future looks bright, and we can't wait till next time we meet. My name is Will Rollo, joined today by Alice Deering, and on behalf of the entire team at World Aquatics, thank you for joining us here in Hong Kong, China.